Young Americans who don't vote, why don't you? I used to not vote because I thought I was protesting a broken and corrupt system. I thought by participating in it, I would legitimize it. Years later I realized that those in power really don't want you to vote after all. That's why they make it so hard to. So now I vote out of spite. Well said. It's a stupid system, but it's what we got. You know who cares about your protest vote? Absolutely freaking no one. How about you make it a goddamn holiday and stop asking why overworked, sleep deprived hormonal messes want to go home, jerk off, and spend time with friends instead of standing in line for multiple hours just to offer up a meaningless vote that, because of the stupid voting system and slow erosion of democracy into a two-party system, has become a vote for the candidate you hate the least instead of a vote for a candidate you actually agree with. Let's not even get into the fact most can't possibly even know what they are voting for. You really think a person who has just barely started shaving, can't drive and hasn't even been taught what taxes are, could possibly have a vested interest in a vote? The ones dedicated enough to keep up with an increasingly cynical post-truth news cycle are the ones going out to vote. Don't put this on the ones that don't. I didn't vote in my early 20s because I couldn't make it to the polls due to work. In my mid-20s I tried to, but they moved my polling station and I couldn't find it. 3 different times. In my late 20s to today I do vote, but I moved so my polling location is easy to get to, and I now have a job with normal hours. Makes it easy to do. I do vote. As a former non-traditional university student, and being able to observe my younger peers, it's not surprising a lot of 18, 24-year-olds don't vote. The fact that most elections and primaries are held during courses, typically near midterms, when students are highly stressed and concentrated on other things, not to mention the ludicrous policies that require you to register to vote where you live, which can be hundreds of miles away from where you reside during semester, because so many students use their parents' address for important or basically any postal delivery other than Amazon. So you have 10,000 young people of voting age in small pockets screaming their support for candidate X. Then come election day they're in chemical 1102, 248 miles from their respective polling places. Not American, but it's clear your system is rigged. I agree with everyone saying their vote doesn't matter, because it literally doesn't. If our votes don't matter, why would Bloomberg pay so much money for so few of them? Since I don't keep up with elections solely because of the drama around it, thanks American media, I'm misinformed in politics. I feel my vote would be irresponsible. I'd like to clarify. I understand the system we run is a democratic republic, meaning we elect officials to represent the group of people who voted them in. Presidential elections lately have been so overshadowed by the media coverage that it's hard to find unbiased as possible stories about what's going on. Instead, it's very skewed one way or another. State and local government elections are much more meaningful to me, since those are the folks that get the most done for me as an individual. I can't write a letter to the president to get a traffic light installed on my daily route to work. That affects me much more than who's making calls to foreign governments or who's deleting emails. I vote in state and local elections. I usually sit out of presidential ones because I believe it means more to me as an individual. This will be the first year I won't vote. I don't want my parents being able to find out where I'm living. And once you register your address to vote, then your info is out there. I don't have enough cause to file a restraining order against them either, so I can't do one of those programs like they have for DV survivors. I want a president under the age of 70, not a socialist, not a reality show host, and not someone who panders to African Americans after writing legislation that oppressed their communities. I liked Buttigieg and Klobuchar. It's easier to tell others you didn't vote for anyone. If you said you voted for one side, the other side will hate you with every fiber of their being. You won't exercise your right to vote because you want to avoid conflict? What the hell? I want this democracy to fail. I want this republic to be torn down piece by piece and reborn as a functioning 21st century constitutional republic. We need another constitutional convention. It's been like 200 years since we last had one, and the only thing that both parties can agree on is that there's nothing wrong with the two-party system. It's like some comic book dystopia and people are saying the reason it doesn't work is because I don't vote. No, the reason it doesn't work is because it's a system ruled by money and influence, where my vote isn't a voice, it's a commodity. And what? Vote for the Democrat who's going to blast me in the ass, or the Republican who's going to blast my ass? Either way, politics is all one big ass blasting. I agree, politics is one big ass blast. I say we oil up a couple of asses and do some blasting of our own. Remember the episode of South Park where the townspeople were forcing Stan to vote for the new mascot and the candidates were giant douche and turd sandwich? For most elections, it always seems like both candidates are just absolute trashy people, and in the eyes of a young person who wants to see strong candidates instead of bickering boomers, it only makes it harder to want to vote, especially when they must choose between a turd and a douche. Because 80% of my day is work, 20% is me being so exhausted from work that I don't have the motivation to do anything other than sleep, and on the off chance that I do have energy, I'd rather do something that makes me happy. This thread is making me angry. This whole both parties suck and everyone is lame is a ridiculous take. I've never understood the whole vote for the lesser of two evils thing. If all the candidates aren't compelling or speaking to issues you care about, not voting for either seems to be a perfectly reasonable choice. Other reasons people don't vote annoy me more, like the difficulty of going to vote, etc. On a side note, voter turnout rates in the US at the local levels are appallingly low. Because of this, mayors and council members can get elected with tiny vote counts and all it needs is a significant number of supporters, friends and extended family, and they're in. I'm convinced it's why we encounter frequent numbers of corrupt officials at the local levels, as it's not that difficult to get elected and have access to corrupt opportunities. I'm a young person, 19, who did vote. However, I feel it's necessary to point out the despair young voters feel. As a generation we are beginning to recognize how flawed the system is more and more. The candidates have really already been decided, and on a more conspiratorial level, the ultra-rich are controlling the government through Congress. So what's the point of voting when it's the equivalent of the volunteer at the library asking you which puppets you'd like used in the puppet show they're putting on? Because we have better/more important things to do that waste time on religious rites. Voting is the easiest way to feel like you've done something when you've in fact done nothing. You'll make a bigger difference in the world spending the 30 minutes picking up trash in your neighborhood. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to Reddit for more stories.